Raising the Dead. G'day to all you lovely people and welcome back to my channel. I'm Kathy and today I want to talk about Deadbeat, the 7th book in the Dresden Files by Jim Butcher. Before I get started, I wanted to let you guys know that just like the last few reviews, I'm going to be splitting this one into 3 parts. Spoiler free, with spoilers, and a summary at the end. To be honest, I actually prefer these kinds of reviews because it allows me to get so much more into a book when I can talk about spoilers. However, as I've said before, when I talk about spoilers, it's only in relation to this book. I have to reference things that happen in previous books, so if you have not read the previous books, then skip this video until you do. Okay, so let's talk about Deadbeat. There is a lot going on in this book, just like all the others. They are so fast-paced that sometimes I feel I can't catch my breath. But that's what I love about them. And considering they're so small in comparison to, say, some fantasy, it's surprising just how much Butcher can jam-pack into a book. Just like the previous books, Butcher decided to focus on one area of magic in this one, and that is necromancy. He had touched on necromancy briefly in book, I think it was 3 or 4. I think it was 3. See, this is what happens when you read them so quickly together. They do tend to blend. Grave Peril, I believe he dealt slightly with necromancy, but we learn so much more about it in this book. From memory, I believe the White Council has outlawed necromancy of people. And that distinction is important. There are 2, possibly 3 storylines. The main one involves necromancy itself and a group of necromancers that are after what is called the Word of Kemler, which is like the Bible for necromancers. Kemler was a wizard who was one of the most, if not most, powerful necromancers. In addition, right at the beginning, I think, Harry is approached by Mavra, the head of the Black Court vampires. He had suspected that she hadn't been killed in the last book, and he was right. And she basically blackmails him. She threatens to expose Karen Murphy's actions during the raid on the Black Court vampires in book 6, unless Harry gets her the Word of Kemler. Another subplot involves Lucille, and if people don't recall, Lucille is one of the fallen angels whose coin Harry touched. In the last book, book 6, Harry was able to call upon Hellfire, and he was concerned that his touching Lucille's coin had infected him as such. So he also has that worry in the back of his mind throughout this book. Now, none of these books are standalone books. It's all one large story arc. Every book adds a little bit more to Harry's story, to the magical world, etc. In book 6, Harry learned that Thomas, the White Court vampire, is his brother. When we start this book, they are now living together. Unfortunately, in this book, we do not see a lot of Murphy. But something very interesting does happen with Murphy. I will confess that I always wanted Harry to be with Murphy. They seemed a much better fit than him and Susan. And I was very happy to see Harry acknowledge, finally, some romantic feelings for Murphy. A character we have met previously, Butters, a coroner, I think, or pathologist, plays a much bigger role in this one. I like it when Butcher does that, when he takes a character we have met before, and then explores that character further with a book. And we learn a lot more about butters and polka music. And that's all I want to say at this point. Oh, and I forgot to mention, we also spent a bit more time with Bob. So I was very happy because I just adore Bob. There are two characters that I really liked that we met in this book, both wardens of the White Council. One is Ramirez, very young, and seems to idolize Harry or respect Harry for being so rebellious against the White Council. I liked the character of Ramirez, who seems very, very cocky, but then he's young, right? Regardless, I liked his relationship with Harry, which really only started developing towards the latter part of the book. Another warden, in fact, I think she is the captain of the wardens, is Lucio. I really don't know how to pronounce that. She was a character I really enjoyed. In fact, I really enjoyed learning a lot more about the wardens, about their role in enforcing the laws of magic. That was one of my favorite parts of this book. The mystery regarding the necromancy is very well done. I thought so. I couldn't even guess where it was going. I really couldn't. And some of the necromancers that we meet, they're not as obvious a villain as you would expect as some of the other villains we've met. It makes it more interesting, much less predictable, and I think it's also more realistic. Generally speaking, most people aren't just black or white. We have a lot of grey in us. Harry has a lot of grey in him, and I prefer villains that have that as well. I also really loved that we got to explore some new haunts of Harry's that we haven't visited before, such as the bookshop. I know I have moved, sorry. It's at the bookshop that we actually meet Sheila, a new character. I'll admit, I was suspicious of her from the very beginning. I really was. I thought she seemed far too keen on Harry. She had magical ability, so I wasn't as willing to accept her as Harry was. I love Butcher's books because it is not often I laugh out loud when reading books. It's very rare actually. And yet Butcher has succeeded so many times. And what Harry did at the end, oh my God, I could not stop laughing. Other things I really loved. Harry was aware he might have some difficulty defeating several of the necromancers. There were a few instances where it seemed he wouldn't be able to get away, might even get killed. And as a result of his uncertainty, he was worried that he was going to be tempted by Lucille's coin to use part of Lucille's power. If you are faced with an enemy that is more powerful than you, then you want every weapon at your disposal. Lucille's power is just another weapon that he could use. But he knows that it is a trap, that this is how fallen angels tempt mortals, by offering them power, by offering them assistance until eventually they enslave them. I really enjoyed that part, watching Harry's internal battle regarding Lucille. I also liked that Cal and Kumori raised some questions regarding the White Council. Made me wonder, could they be right? Up to now, my view of the White Council was that they were a hypocritical body who were outdated, old-fashioned, almost, not quite, but almost obsolete. There's just been hints of cracks in the White Council's authority. So there is quite a bit of intrigue in relation to what is happening to the White Council. Other things I really liked. I really loved seeing the development of Harry and Thomas's relationship. I thought that was beautifully done. It also seemed very organic, very real. It didn't seem forced, which it could have been. Oh, Butters. Yes, I do want to talk about Butters too. Butters is gorgeous. I just adore him. I think he is quirky and funny, perhaps unintentionally funny at times, extremely intelligent, and yet obviously a bit of a loner. I thought he was a very believable, realistic character. Here we have someone who is very practical, science-oriented, who is faced with magic, not for the first time either, and yet still has difficulty accepting that all these magical creatures and things actually can happen in our world. I actually think that if I was faced with magic, I would probably react the same way as Butters, because I am a skeptic. I don't believe in anything unless I see proof of it with my own eyes. And I really loved how Butcher explored just how fear can affect different people, particularly through Butters. Because Harry is brave, right? Yes, he's terrified, but he works through that fear and does whatever is necessary to get the job done. I really admire that about Harry. Whereas on the other hand, we then have Butters, who at times is paralyzed by his fear. Okay, something else I really loved in this book is Mouse. What a great name for this amazing dog. I am a dog lover, okay? I'm one of these people who will pat every dog that she sees. And I love that Harry kept Mouse, who is a character within himself. He is so well drawn in these books. I love it. I love it when animals, not just the people, have a distinctive character like Mr. does. Because Mr. does, right? He is gorgeous. I love Mr. Because if you ask me, every dog is different. Every cat is different. They share traits like we share traits amongst other people, but we're not the same. And neither are animals. That is really all I can say without spoilers, so let's go into the spoiler part. Leading off from what I said about Butters, I loved that in the end he found some courage for himself. He acknowledged that he's not a brave person, but when push came to shove, when Harry was almost dying, Butters worked through his fear and helped Harry. I loved that. I really did, actually. Many people assume that if you are fearful that you're a coward. I actually don't agree with that. I think we all feel fear. It is how we deal with it, whether we allow it to control us or whether we control it. While we're talking about Harry nearly dying, liver spots, as he calls him, was actually Cassius. I didn't guess it, not until very near the end. And I love it when Butcher surprises me like that. I'm sure I said in a previous review that I was cheering when Harry beat up Cassius. Now I wish he had killed him. Really, seriously. But I understand Harry's reluctance to kill another person, even Cassius, who really deserved it. I'm actually against killing. I know you wouldn't think that, would you? Let's talk about Mavra. Again, that seemed very anticlimactic. It was built up so much at the beginning, and just like other storylines, it seems that Butcher runs out of steam and it's like, yeah, Harry just stands over and says, you do it again and I'll wipe you out. And I couldn't believe given what he learned through Gravane, the corpse taker, Cal, that he was going to give the word of Kemmler to Mavra. And yet in the end he did, because it was more important to save Murphy. But I think we have not seen the end of that storyline. Yeah, Mavra is going to come back, and obviously she's going to use necromancy, I'm assuming. The necromancy. Usually zombies don't have that supernatural strength, and yet the zombies, reanimated corpses, whatever you want to call them, that beat down Harry's door were clearly much stronger than we're used to. I really like the deal that he struck to save Butters and themselves. It was realistic. He knew when he was defeated, and he was at that point. He was also, I think, still recovering. It seems to me Harry's always recovering because everything seems to happen at once. Despite what Gravane did at Harry's apartment, I found him very ineffectual as a villain. I didn't find him interesting. I just found him a blockhead with muscle. And when I say muscle, I don't mean him physically, but all of his walking dead. The corpse taker, on the other hand, I thought she was, or he, or whatever the hell they are, a very interesting character. I'm very curious to see if we see anyone else with those kinds of powers in the future. Cal was just arrogant, in my opinion. Very arrogant wizard. He thought he was superior to everyone else, including Harry. Kumori, this character, I didn't get a full understanding of her. She was contradictory, no doubts about her. She was prepared to kill Harry if necessary so that her and Cal can go through with their scheme, and yet on the other hand had saved some people from dying. Now, what they were aiming to accomplish at the end, okay, can I say that it just seems so illogical to me? If we never have deaths, considering our birth rates, we would be so overpopulated so quickly. It could never work. And isn't that just part of the human existence, is knowing that we have a limited lifespan? And what will happen then? There'll be a purge of people they don't want. It was definitely a plan that made no sense to me. But I guess that's why Harry referred to them as being insane. And I agree with him with that. Okay. I mentioned earlier that there was a part in this book that just cracked me up, that I could not stop laughing. I'm sure you all know if you've read this book, which hopefully you have if you're watching the spoilers, and that is Harry raising a dinosaur from the dead. Oh my God, did I love that part so much. And of course I had images of Jurassic Park, right? And yes, it is extremely silly, of course, but I thought Butcher was just having fun with it, clearly having fun with it. I can just imagine Butcher writing and thinking, how cool would that be? I'm sure some people would hate it, think, oh, come on, but it was just so silly. And I think it was meant to be silly. I don't think we're meant to take it seriously. The way Harry dealt with the necromancers made sense, right? He had a dinosaur. He was quite happy to chomp away at everyone and anyone. It seemed, what do they call it? Deus ex machina or something like that? Device that the author used to get him out of this situation, because otherwise how could he? But as I said, I took it as a bit of fun. And that leads me on to Morgan. Can I say that I detest Morgan? I know that in this book, Harry feels he gained a better understanding of Morgan, that he is simply burnt out. I don't agree. I think Morgan is a zealot. They are unreasonable. You can never reason with them. It didn't matter what Harry said in this book, that he didn't shoot Lucio, he shot the corpse taker, and yet Morgan was just going to execute him. I have no patience for that. Now, last thing I wanted to talk about the ending is in relation to the White Council, that they are on the skids and have been decimated, or the wardens, or both actually, I think it's wardens and wizards, have been decimated by the Red Court and a traitor. We are seeing a lot of cracks in the White Council, and clearly this is going to become a major story. I'm convinced of it. Don't tell me though, if you've read the books, whether I'm right or wrong. Let me find out for myself. And I loved, wow, after everything that Harry went through, I absolutely loved that he is now a warden. Wow, such a turnaround, isn't it? Or desperation on the part of the White Council. Regardless, it's going to give us, I think, a much better understanding of how the White Council operates, about the wardens in particular. I forgot to talk about Lucille and Sheila and Billy and Georgina thinking that Harry is going crazy. I honestly didn't guess. I knew that there was something up with Sheila, but I never would have guessed that it was Lucille. Never. So that was a great twist. And I really enjoy it when the author shocks me like that. I'm also glad that Harry isn't insane. I've said it before, I am really enjoying this internal battle he's having with the temptation of Lucille. I can't wait to see where that's going to go as well. Even though these books don't end on cliffhangers, in parts they are, because the storyline hasn't been finalised in these books, it continues. So do I like Deadbeat? I really enjoyed it, very much. I think with a long series of books, you get to a point where you're very familiar with the magical world. You're familiar with a lot of the characters, and you can start to guess at the directions some of the books are going to take. And that's where we're up to now. I can see, I think, I could be wrong, right? But that is most of the fun, right? Guessing. Seeing if I can guess just where the books are going to end up. So I love this part of a series. As for a score, I actually think the books are getting better. Yeah, no surprise, right? I think I would give this one 6.5 to 7. In fact, it probably does deserve a 7. Let me know if you have read Deadbeat and what your thoughts are on it. You know I always want to hear your opinions. Did you like it? Did you hate it? What did you like? What didn't you like? Well, thank you guys very much for hanging out with me. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as usual, you can like, comment and subscribe if you haven't already. I hope you all have a beautiful day, and I will see you next time. Bye.